This has history. I got this, and it was old then, when I was about 8 years old. And you know what I did? I guess you rub it harder and faster. But you know, in the movie, the story with Aladdin, Genie didn't appear whenever Aladdin wanted him to appear. He appeared when Aladdin rubbed the lamp. Aladdin had to do something. When Aladdin used what was placed in his hand, his good appeared. I thought by rubbing it, I used it. Well, the word for today is rub your lamp. Put to use what you now have. Back when Jim Freeman was still with us, and I was working with the retreat department. I heard him tell a wonderful story. And in that story, there was a line that appeared several times. Use what you have for what you have to use it for. Use what you have for what you have to use it for. Put to use what you have at hand, whatever material possessions, whatever talents, whatever abilities, whatever opportunities present themselves to you, opportunities for service, opportunities for growth. Sometimes those are a little bit more difficult. Put them to use. So, what are you doing now with what you have now, with what's at hand in your life? Use what you have, rub your lamp, use what you have for what you have to use it for. And it really means to make way in your consciousness, in your life, for the more abundant good that you desire, that you want, that God is seeking to present and give you. It's remarkable that in the seeming miracles that we see in the Old and the New Testament, how often it's simple, everyday things that are at hand that seem to be the foundation, the pivotal point for these miracles to take place and to produce results that are well beyond what was expected. Elijah. Everyday things. Well, the woman who didn't have enough. He said, "What do you have?" "Well, I have a little bit of oil." And what did he do? They took the oil and they used it, and it expanded. It grew. They put it to work. Gideon, he had a small little band of about 300 soldiers, and they ended up routing a huge army of Midianites. He used that little band of people to rout a huge army, and it worked. David, he killed a giant with a pebble shot from a slingshot. When I was a kid, slingshots were still kind of popular. My dad kind of liked him because he made one for me that was pretty big, and it was constructed of metal. It had a big, I could hardly pull the rubber band back. I think it would kill you if you got hit by something that was shot from that thing. You used to be able to buy them in the old 5 and dime that were wood with the rubber wide rubber band to shoot things out of. Oh, we had great fun with those. Never shot anybody's eye out, never broke a window. But that's not for want of trying, I suppose. Jesus, he broke 5 loaves and took 2 fish, and he fed 5,000. Simple things, and boom, look what happened. He laid a foundation for a world religion by taking a motley crew, unprepared, untrained men. He took them as his evangelists. And what happened? Well, now, what he taught, or something like what he taught, is now pretty worldwide. And we call it Christianity. He reached into the mouth of a fish, and he pulled out a coin to pay taxes. April 14th, next year, you are going to go to the fish place down in the market, and you're going to start sticking your finger in fish mouths till you find the tax money. Isn't that how it works? Yeah. Remember, it's in that state of Christ consciousness that sees the possibilities. Now, I think sometimes we may not succeed demonstrating prosperity or abundance in our lives because we think there's no opportunities. And I think it's more accurate to say sometimes we don't succeed in demonstrating good in our lives because we do not see the opportunities. That's more accurate. They're here. They're around us. God moves in mysterious ways. Have you heard that before? I once heard somebody say, God moves in mysterious ways, or does he just walk funny? His wonders to perform. That's the other part of that. His wonders to perform. Mysterious? No, it's not mysterious. Not so much because they're hidden, as because they're unexpected ways. We don't see the opportunities because we're not looking for that kind or the possible opportunity. Sometimes we have something else fixed in mind. Well, I'm looking for this opportunity, that opportunity. How about be open to an opportunity, a God-directed opportunity, something unexpected. We may think God's way of doing things and bringing about miracles of truth has to be through some unusual or complex way, when actually they're built upon simple things: a coin, a fish, bread, a few motley men. Simple things, a little cruse of oil, something at hand. And how often is there something at hand we don't even recognize its value or what is possible with that particular thing? And then somebody takes something that they've had for generations in the family and goes to Antiques Roadshow. And you watch as their eyes, oh, really? Oh, and we almost sold that in a yard sale. They realize what they've had all along. when my grandmother passed, she left a house loaded attic to basement and all the rooms with some pretty incredible antiques. From being an antique collector, going to auctions, from the time I was about 7 or 8 years old. And at about 8, she started dragging me along. I saw some incredible things. And then when I lived with her for 5 years, I lived among some incredible things. And now they're all gone. They're scattered to other people who hopefully know what they... She had one vase. It was made by Rookwood Pottery Company. Rookwood is a native Cincinnati, was a Cincinnati pottery company. Was very well known and began in the late 1800s. She had a vase that was made in the second year they were in business, and it was signed by the artist. And when my grandfather passed, she paid for his entire funeral with that one vase, selling it to an antique dealer who was buying it wholesale. That one vase. Yeah, some beautiful things. We don't always know what we have, what's possible. We don't really realize sometimes what's available to us. So, before we continue to talk about lack in our lives, lack of love, lack of health, lack of substance or supply, let's ask God to reveal to us the opportunities that are available to us right here, right now, and what we've got to put to work in our lives. What do you have that you can use right now? What do you have that presents an opportunity for you? Ask for that guidance. Make what you have, what you can do, what you can even envision, the basis of your demonstrations. It's a great line. Use what you have for what you have to use it for. What have you done with what you have? What are you doing now with what you have? For what you've already received? For what's in your life and you may have overlooked it, forgotten it? We could pray for vision so that we see with receptive eyes those opportunities and those blessings that have already come into our lives. We begin to see the good that we've already received. I don't know about you, but I seem sometimes after it comes, it isn't long before I forget about it because I go on to something else and I forget the good that's right here, right now. Now, I don't know, it just seemed like, it's 4th of July and this is an election year and there's a lot of politics on television and radio. So, I did some looking. Asked Chris yesterday, because I knew a story about the Republican convention that was held in Kansas City. Do you remember it? I asked Chris, and he looked it up for me. And the last one was 1976. But that's not the one I was interested in. 1928, Republican convention at Convention Hall, which is no more. That year, a novelty manufacturer came up with what he thought was a brilliant idea. He was going to clean up at the Republican convention by bringing hundreds of gray felt elephants and sell them. don't know, something like, this big. Sounds like a great idea, right? He just knew it was a winner. He made great plans for the event. It was well played out. But, well, I think the elephants were probably planned well too, but the convention turned out to be a bit tamer, I guess, than he expected, because he didn't sell very many gray felt elephants. Now, everything looked like he was just about ruined. It was going to be a total loss. He had all this inventory of gray felt elephants left over. What the heck do you do with gray felt elephants after the Republican conventions ended? Burn them? But he thought. And I have to think he got pretty open and receptive because he got creative. He would not accept the defeat, so he opened himself to do something with those elephants. And pretty soon he figured if he reduced the size of them, made them a little thinner, skinnier, smaller, he cut off the trunk and made it into the tail. And by the time he was done, he had these wonderful gray donkeys. And he went to Houston to the Democratic convention and he sold the darn things. Now that works, doesn't it? Use what you have for what you have to use it for what opportunity presents itself. And he saw no opportunity until he stopped. And I have to believe he had to reach some point of stillness, because as long as we're continuing with that spinning, there's nothing, this is a failure and I'm going to lose. And as soon as you stop that, you open yourself, you get rid of the static so you can begin to be receptive to a new opportunity, a new idea. Elephants became donkeys, loss became profit, distress became joy. That's not a bad deal. So the moral of the story, make a donkey out of your elephant, or it'll make a monkey out of you. Now, there are a couple of kinds of truth students. There's the impractical truth student. We call this practical Christianity, right? Which means you can practice it, you can put it to use in your life. Well, if you don't see any opportunity, how can you practice it? If you're not receptive to a new idea, how can you practice it? The impractical person talks about what he would do if conditions were different. Oh, that's nice. That makes you a victim of circumstances, isn't it? But the practical truth student knows that to them that love God, all things are possible. The Bible says it. I believe it. What about you? To them that love God. It's not about feeling, oh, God, you're so lovely and beautiful. It's feeling a connection to the source, a connection to that infinite intelligence. So the practical truth student prays not so much for different opportunities or better ones, but for a clear vision of that will reveal what's right here, right now, without the world having to change for you to have a successful outcome. What is he not seeing? So he prays for a renewed vision, to see the blessings that he can move toward the fulfillment of his vision. No matter how discouraging the outer appearances may seem to be. And I think this is the winning way of bringing out the good in your life. Don't look at the appearances. My God, the convention's over. I've got 1,000 elephants left. And excuse me, but who the heck is going to buy an elephant the day after the convention? Nobody. But when you can perform miracles, you thought coin in a fish's mouth? That manufacturer turned an elephant into a donkey and made a fortune. We have opportunities. If you ask for God's help, if you ask for divine aid, for some good to come into your life, then we need to know that with faith in God, God will lead us promptly, will lead us definitely to that good. And keep yourself from falling for outer appearances, how things look. How many times things outside can look so dark and so bleak, but if you stick in faith to the truth, the outside changes. New information comes, new light dawns, and you see a new and great possibility. We talk about the grace of God, and I like to teach that the grace of God is that the good of God is already present. You don't lose it. But to get it, you have to get into that consciousness of the presence of God and of the presence of the good of God, or you don't see it. And when you get into that grace, that sense of the presence of God, the presence of the good of God, then appearances are transformed. They change. And that's the nature of the outside world. They even change into agents for the expression of God in your life. Now, God's attitude to us, I'm going to use the word beneficent. God is good. Do we not say that? God is good. God doesn't punish us. We punish ourselves by our own thoughts, attitudes, activities. When you violate a law like the law of gravity, you fall and skin your knees or your nose. When you violate the law of inertia, body in motion tends to remain in motion. You end up smacking your face into something. God didn't do that to you. We do it to ourselves by violating natural law. God is good, beneficent, and also unchanging. And His supply is eternal, is infinite, is certainly enough to meet every possible human need. And never, never, never withholds. God never withholds good. It is we who withhold it from ourselves, not accepting it, not realizing that it's available, not thinking we're good enough. So it's time to act positively, think constructively, realizing that it is God's good nature to give you the good you seek. God is at hand, good is at hand, and realizing that it's right here, even though you may not yet see it, you may not yet be conscious of it. Know that it's here. And ask if you need for clearer vision to see the good that's available, to see the opportunities that are right in front of you. How many times have you been looking for something, and when you finally see it, you said, my God, if it were a snake, it would have bit me, or something else that equally has teeth. Ask God to help you find it, help you see it, so that you realize the good is at hand. And you can turn elephants into donkeys instead of becoming a monkey. Sounds like a good prospect to me.